Imagine finding an ancient map in your grandpa's attic. But this isn't just any map. This map shows Antarctica perfectly. Every coastline, every mountain, every detail. The only problem? It was drawn 500 years ago. Way before anyone was supposed to know Antarctica even existed. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's exactly what happened. And it's about to blow your mind. What if I told you there's evidence that someone mapped Antarctica thousands of years ago? Not hundreds. Thousands. When it was supposedly covered in ice that no human had ever seen through. When no ships could sail there. When no planes could fly overhead. Yet somehow, someone drew incredibly accurate maps of what lies beneath miles of ice. Maps so precise that modern satellites confirm they got it right. The question that's been haunting researchers for decades is simple. How is this even possible? Today, we're diving into one of history's greatest mysteries. We're talking ancient civilizations, impossible knowledge, and evidence that might completely change what we think we know about human history. So buckle up, because this rabbit hole goes deep. Let's start with the map that started it all. Picture this. It's 1929, and workers are renovating the famous Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, Turkey. They're just doing regular construction work when suddenly, they find something incredible hidden in the walls. An ancient map, folded and forgotten for centuries. This wasn't just any old map. This was the Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis. Now you might think, okay, so what? Old maps exist everywhere. But here's where it gets weird. The map shows the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and South America with stunning accuracy. But that's not the crazy part. The crazy part is what's at the bottom of the map. There, clear as day, is a landmass that looks exactly like Antarctica. Not the Antarctica we see today, covered in ice. But Antarctica as it would look if all the ice melted away. Think about this for a second. In 1513, Europeans had barely figured out that America existed. Christopher Columbus had only reached the Americas about 20 years earlier. Nobody was supposed to know about Antarctica until 1820, when it was officially discovered. That's over 300 years later. But here's Admiral Piri Reis, casually drawing Antarctica like he's been there on vacation. And not just drawing it wrong, like you'd expect from someone guessing. He drew it right. Scary right. When modern researchers compare the Piri Reis map to what we know today, they found something that made their jaws drop. The coastline matched perfectly with what lies beneath the ice. Coastlines that we only discovered using ground-penetrating radar and satellite technology in the 1900s. How could Piri Reis possibly know what Antarctica looked like under the ice? The ice has been there for millions of years, right? Well, that's what we thought. But this map suggests something completely different. The Ottoman admiral himself wrote notes on his map, explaining where he got his information. He said he used about 20 older maps as sources. Some of these source maps, according to Piri Reis, dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. That's over 2,000 years ago. But even that doesn't solve our problem. Alexander the Great lived around 300 BC. Antarctica would still have been covered in ice. So where did those ancient mapmakers get their information? Some researchers think the ice coverage of Antarctica has changed more recently than we believed. Maybe there were periods when parts of Antarctica were ice-free, and ancient civilizations somehow reached it and mapped it. But mainstream science says that's impossible. Others think there might have been an advanced ancient civilization that had technology we don't understand. Technology that could see through ice or map the world from the sky. Sounds like science fiction, but the evidence is sitting right there on the map. The Piri Reis map also shows South America with incredible accuracy. It shows the Amazon River, which wasn't fully explored by Europeans until much later. It shows mountain ranges in the right places. It even shows islands that we've only recently confirmed exist. Here's another mind-blowing detail. The map shows the correct longitude for different locations. Calculating longitude accurately was one of the hardest problems in navigation. Europeans didn't figure out how to do it reliably until the 1700s, when they invented precise clocks. Yet somehow, this 1513 map gets it right. The more you look at the Piri Reis map, the more questions it raises. How did they get aerial perspective drawings that look like satellite images? How did they calculate distances so accurately across oceans? How did they know about lands that supposedly hadn't been discovered yet? But here's the thing that really keeps researchers up at night. the Piri Reis map isn't alone. It's just the beginning. What do you think? Could ancient civilizations really have mapped Antarctica thousands of years ago? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because we're just getting started with this mystery. The Piri Reis map was just the tip of the iceberg. Once researchers started looking, they found more ancient maps that showed impossible knowledge. Maps that shouldn't exist, drawn by people who shouldn't have known what they were drawing. Let's talk about the Oronteus Finaeus map. This beauty was created in 1531 by a French mathematician and cartographer. And guess what it shows? Yep, Antarctica again. But this time, it's even more detailed and even more impossible. The Oronteus Finaeus map shows Antarctica as a continent with rivers, mountains, and coastlines. It's drawn like someone actually walked around the entire continent, taking notes and sketching everything they saw. The problem? This was 1531. Nobody was supposed to know Antarctica existed for another 300 years. But wait, it gets weirder. The map shows Antarctica in a very specific way. It shows what Antarctica would look like if it had a warmer climate, with flowing rivers and areas that aren't covered in ice. Modern research suggests that parts of Antarctica might have been ice-free about 6,000 years ago, during a warmer period. Did someone map it back then? The level of detail is what really gets experts scratching their heads. This isn't someone making a wild guess about what might be at the bottom of the world. This looks like someone actually went there, spent time exploring, and carefully documented what they found. Then there's the Mercator map from 1569. Gerard Mercator was one of the greatest mapmakers of all time. He invented the map projection we still use today. But his world map shows something that should have been impossible for him to know. For separate land masses around the South Pole, connected by channels of water. Modern research has confirmed that beneath all the ice, Antarctica is actually made up of several large islands, connected by ice but separated by water channels. Mercator somehow drew this accurately in 1569. How could he possibly have known this? The Philippe Boitch map from 1737 is another jaw-dropper. Boitch was the royal geographer of France, a serious scientist, not some guy making stuff up. His map shows Antarctica divided into two main land masses, separated by a waterway running right through the middle of the continent. Here's the kicker. We didn't discover this waterway until the 1958 International Geophysical Year, when scientists used seismic equipment to map what lies beneath the ice. The waterway exists exactly where Boitch drew it in 1737. How did he know? These mapmakers weren't just lucky guessers. They were including details that we've only recently confirmed with modern technology. Details about the depth of water around Antarctica. Details about where the continental shelf ends and the deep ocean begins. Details about underwater mountain ranges. The Haji Ahmed map from 1559 shows the Pacific coast of North America with stunning accuracy, including geographical features that European explorers hadn't discovered yet. It also shows a land bridge between Asia and North America, where the Bering Strait is today. Scientists believe this land bridge existed during the last ice age, when sea levels were much lower. But here's what's really mind-blowing. These maps show knowledge that spans thousands of years of climate change. They show what the world looked like during ice ages, during warmer periods, and everything in between. It's like someone was documenting changes to our planet over thousands and thousands of years. Some of these maps also show Greenland as 3 separate islands, which is exactly what lies beneath the ice sheet. We only discovered this recently using ice-penetrating radar. But somehow, ancient mapmakers knew about it. The precision of these maps is incredible. They show longitude and latitude with accuracy that Europeans supposedly couldn't achieve until they invented precise chronometers in the 1700s. They show the correct sizes of continents relative to each other. They show ocean currents and wind patterns. What's even stranger is that many of these maps include notes from their creators, explaining that they compiled their maps from much older sources. Ancient sources that have since been lost. Sources that apparently contained geographic knowledge far beyond what we thought ancient civilizations possessed. The consistency between these different maps is also remarkable. Maps created by different people in different countries during different time periods all show similar impossible details about Antarctica and other unexplored regions. It's like they were all working from the same set of ancient sources. So we're not talking about one weird map that might be explained away. We're talking about a pattern. A pattern of ancient maps that show knowledge no one should have had. Knowledge that suggests someone, somewhere, was systematically mapping our planet with incredible accuracy thousands of years ago. Who were these ancient map makers? And how did they do it? Let me know in the comments what you think about these impossible maps. Are we missing something huge about ancient history? Okay, so we've got all these maps showing impossible knowledge. Maps that suggest someone was accurately mapping our planet thousands of years ago. The big question is, who? Some researchers think we're looking at evidence of an advanced ancient civilization. A civilization that existed before recorded history and had technology we can barely imagine. A civilization that could accurately map the entire world, including places covered by ice. Think about it. What would it take to create maps this accurate? First, you'd need to be able to travel everywhere. Every continent, every coastline, every island. You'd need ships that could handle the roughest seas on Earth. Ships that could somehow navigate to Antarctica and survive in those brutal conditions. But that's just the beginning. You'd also need incredibly precise instruments to measure longitude and latitude. You'd need ways to calculate distances across vast oceans. You'd need to understand the Earth's shape and size with mathematical precision. Most importantly, you'd need some way to see what lies beneath ice sheets that are miles thick. Think about that. Modern science only figured out how to do this in the last century, using sophisticated radar and satellite technology. How could ancient people possibly have done it? Some researchers think this ancient civilization might have had aircraft. Yeah, you heard that right. Aircraft. Think about it. How else could you get the aerial perspective shown in some of these maps? How else could you map entire continents with such accuracy? There are actually ancient texts from around the world that describe flying machines. The Sanskrit texts of ancient India talk about vimanas, flying vehicles that could travel great distances. Ancient Chinese texts describe flying dragons that might have been aircraft. Even the Bible describes Ezekiel's wheel, a flying object with incredible capabilities. Could these ancient texts be describing real technology? Technology that allowed an ancient civilization to map the world from the sky? But here's another possibility that's even more mind-blowing. What if this ancient civilization didn't just have advanced technology? What if they were around during a time when Antarctica wasn't covered in ice? Some scientists think Antarctica might have been ice-free more recently than we believed. Maybe as recently as 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. There's evidence that the climate changed dramatically around that time. Evidence of massive floods, rapidly melting ice sheets, and major shifts in sea levels. What if there was an advanced civilization during that time? A civilization that thrived when the climate was different? They could have easily mapped Antarctica when it was ice-free and had a temperate climate. This would explain so much. It would explain how they knew what Antarctica looked like under the ice. It would explain the incredible accuracy of their maps. It would explain how they had knowledge of geography all over the world. But then something happened. Something that ended this advanced civilization and froze Antarctica. Maybe a natural disaster. Maybe climate change. Maybe both. There's actually evidence of a major catastrophe around 12,000 years ago. Evidence of massive floods, rapid climate change, and the extinction of many large animals. Some researchers call this the Younger Dryas period. It was like someone flipped a switch and suddenly the world became a much colder, more dangerous place. Maybe this advanced civilization was wiped out by whatever caused the Younger Dryas. Maybe they tried to preserve their knowledge by creating maps and passing them down through the ages. Maps that eventually made their way to medieval cartographers like Piri Reis. This would explain why these maps exist but the civilization that created them doesn't. It would explain why the maps show such advanced knowledge but seem to come from primitive, ancient sources. But here's what really gets researchers excited. We might be able to find evidence of this lost civilization. If they really existed, if they really had advanced technology, they would have left traces behind. Buildings, tools, artwork, something. And guess what? We are finding traces. All over the world, archaeologists are discovering evidence of advanced ancient construction techniques. Massive stone blocks cut with impossible precision. Buildings that show knowledge of advanced mathematics and astronomy. Artifacts that suggest technological capabilities we didn't think ancient people had. The pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge, the massive stone blocks of Peru, the underwater ruins off the coast of Japan. All of these suggest that ancient people were capable of far more than we give them credit for. Maybe these impossible maps are just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. A puzzle that suggests human civilization is much older and much more advanced than we thought. The alternative explanations don't really add up. The idea that medieval mapmakers just made lucky guesses? Too many maps, too much accuracy, too much consistency. The idea that they somehow had access to advanced technology in the 1500s? Where did it come from and where did it go? The ancient advanced civilization theory is starting to look like the most logical explanation. An explanation that would completely rewrite human history. What do you think? Could there have been an advanced civilization mapping our world thousands of years ago? Share your thoughts in the comments. So we've got these impossible maps, and we've talked about the ancient civilization theory. But what does modern science actually say about all this? Have researchers been able to investigate these claims with today's technology? The answer is yes, and what they've found is absolutely fascinating. Let's start with the most important investigation. In the 1960s, a professor named Charles Hapgood became obsessed with these ancient maps. He wasn't some fringe researcher making wild claims. He was a respected academic who taught at Keene State College. And he decided to put these maps to the test. Hapgood took the Piri Reis map to the U.S. Air Force and asked them to analyze it using their most advanced equipment. Remember, this was during the Cold War, when the military had access to the best geographic and mapping technology in the world. The Air Force experts were blown away. They confirmed that the map showed the coastline of Antarctica as it exists beneath the ice, with remarkable accuracy. They said the level of detail and precision was comparable to modern aerial photography. How was this possible in 1513? But Hapgood didn't stop there. He brought in mathematical experts to analyze the map's projection and coordinate system. What they found was incredible. The map used advanced mathematical techniques that weren't supposed to be known in medieval times. The Piri Reis map uses what's called a trigonometric projection, which requires complex mathematical calculations. It also shows an understanding of the Earth's spherical shape and its exact size. This kind of knowledge wasn't supposed to exist until much later in history. Ground-penetrating radar studies of Antarctica have confirmed many details shown on these ancient maps. The underwater mountain ranges are where the maps say they should be. The channels and waterways beneath the ice match exactly with what the old maps showed. Satellite imagery has also confirmed details that should have been impossible for ancient mapmakers to know. The true shape of continents, the locations of islands, even the depth measurements of ocean floors. But here's where it gets really interesting. Modern climate science has actually started to support some of the theories about when these maps might have been created. Ice core samples from Antarctica show that there have been periods of rapid climate change throughout history. Periods when massive amounts of ice melted very quickly. Periods when Antarctica might have been partially ice-free. There's evidence that around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, there was a dramatic warming period. Sea levels rose by hundreds of feet. Massive ice sheets that had covered the world for thousands of years suddenly disappeared. Some researchers think that during this time, parts of Antarctica might have been ice-free for a brief period. Maybe a few hundred or a few thousand years. Long enough for an advanced civilization to explore and map it. Recent discoveries have also supported the idea that ancient civilizations were much more advanced than we thought. Underwater archaeology has revealed sophisticated structures off the coasts of many continents. Structures that were built when sea levels were much lower, then flooded when the ice sheets melted. The Bimini Road off the coast of the Bahamas, underwater ruins near Yonaguni, Japan, and the submerged structures off the coast of India all suggest that there were advanced civilizations living in coastal areas that are now underwater. These discoveries support the theory that there was a major civilization that existed during the last ice age and was wiped out by the rapid climate change that occurred around 12,000 years ago. Genetic studies have also provided some surprising support for these theories. DNA analysis shows that there were major population bottlenecks in human history. Times when the global human population dropped dramatically, as if most of humanity was wiped out by some kind of catastrophe. The timing of these population bottlenecks matches up with the periods when these rapid climate changes occurred. Maybe advanced civilizations really were wiped out by natural disasters, leaving only scattered survivors to rebuild. Archaeological dating techniques have also started to push back the timeline of human civilization. Sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is over 11,000 years old, show that our ancestors were building sophisticated structures much earlier than we thought. The precision stone cutting at sites like Puma Punku in Bolivia suggests that ancient people had access to advanced tools and techniques that we don't fully understand. Some of these sites show evidence of machine-like precision that would be difficult to achieve even with modern equipment. All of this evidence points to the same conclusion. Human civilization is much older and much more sophisticated than mainstream history tells us. The impossible maps might just be one piece of evidence in a much larger story about our forgotten past. Modern technology has also allowed researchers to analyze these maps in ways that weren't possible before. Computer modeling can compare ancient maps with satellite data. Digital analysis can reveal details that aren't visible to the naked eye. Every time researchers apply modern technology to these ancient maps, they find more evidence that supports their authenticity and accuracy. More evidence that someone somewhere had knowledge that shouldn't have existed. The question is no longer whether these maps show impossible knowledge. The question is how this knowledge was obtained and preserved. What's your take on all this modern evidence? Do you think science is finally catching up with what these ancient maps have been trying to tell us all along? Let me know in the comments.